All right, what is going on, Laker fans, NBA fans? Appreciate you guys hanging out on this Wednesday here, this Wednesday night. Lakers finished up their Cali Classic earlier today, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. A lot of still a lot of Lakers stuff to get into, and I haven't got Khobi's opinion on a few things, so had to have him back on the show. As always, Khobi Price covers the Lakers for the OC Register. Khobi, what's going on, brother?
What's up? What's up? Yeah, it's been I think we talked right before free agency. I think
Nothing's happened. Yeah, we didn't miss anything.
Oh no. I think if I can recall, something big happened the day that we talked. There was something significant. I think it was the day free agency started.
Oh, you know what it was?
That early afternoon, like free agency started, whatever, like 2 hours after we spoke, or like an hour maybe, or something like that.
D-Lo was the night before.
That's what it was, yes.
And then, but I think there was something else. What happened on the day of?
Was Paul George?
I think PG was later.
After we recorded?
I think so. I think it was like a couple days later, something like that. I'd have to look back. I'll have to look back, but we'll
so a lot's happened. In other words.
It's funny. It's like either, however you look at it, either a lot happened or nothing happened.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
For the Lakers, it's not like, I mean, if you and I didn't, if neither of us didn't do a show, it's not like we missed, hey, this happened and that happened, and that's just kind of how, the free agency went. First off, let me say, so when do you take off to Summer League? When you heading out there?
Friday late morning, because they it's a quick flight to Vegas. So
yep. Have you ever done Summer League in Vegas?
Yeah, I've been the past 2 seasons, or past 2 Summer Leagues, to say.
This is the question that I have. What's the longest you've stayed in Vegas? Because I think I would hallucinate if I was there for a week.
The longest I've stayed in Vegas is 4 nights, 5 days. So, that's what I'm actually going to do now. Like, I'm going there on Friday, and I'm staying through but I'm flying back, like, later Tuesday.
Okay.
So, that's typically how I've done it. Like, when I was in Orlando, I went from Thursday to Monday. Last year, I think I did a Friday to Tuesday. So, and then even for the in-season tournament.
That's right.
That was also, I'm pretty sure that was 4 nights, 5 days. So I've always found a way to never stay in Vegas for any longer than 4 nights.
I remember, and you could ask Trudell when you see him. Trudell, I swear, had a time. I think it was the year that the Lakers won the Summer League. Then they win the Summer League tournament. If you remember that, that's, I think, the Lonzo Kuzma days, right?
Yeah.
That dude, I think, was in Vegas for it might have been 2 weeks straight. I think he had a moment where he's like, he has to leave. He left and came back.
Yeah.
But I don't know how. That'd be a tough one to process.
Yeah, I always feel bad. "Quote unquote," feel bad. I mean, it's a work trip and you're in Vegas, so it's like to an extent.
No, I get it.
But as someone who's like, I get hot very easily, and I don't do well in heat. As someone who has that characteristic, I always feel for the people who have to stay there. Like, there are people who get there. I mean, who have been there for a few days because they have to get everything set up. So the people who will be there before it starts, and they'll be there all the way through until the day after or 2 days after. Like, there are people who will be there for over 2 weeks. And I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, no, that's too much right there. At least you're sitting basically in air conditioning the entire time. Okay, so we got here's just kind of a quick rundown of what we got going on tonight. I want to get Khobi's thoughts on what we've seen so far in the Summer League. Dalton Knecht, Colin Castleton, Maxwell Lewis, Bronny James, obviously. So I'll ask him some questions about that. Curious to get Khobi's thoughts on just what the Lakers, if there's anything else we should be expecting at this point, or are they just playing the long game? And then Yahoo Sports had a power ranking of every team in the NBA a little bit. I saw this a little bit earlier today. They had the Lakers at a certain spot, and I want to get your thoughts. In the Western Conference, they had them at a certain spot. So we'll get your thoughts on that. Let me just start off here real quick. So I don't know what you've been hoping to see in Summer League in the Cali Classic. So obviously Lakers played 3 games. They lost a little bit earlier today, 80-76 to Miami. I'm sure nobody's really sweating, did the Lakers win or did they not? It's more just looking at individual players. What have been some of your thoughts so far in these 3 games? Is there anything that's really kind of jumped out for you?
I mean, more so the play, like individual, I guess, micro analysis of players rather than because I mean, it's summer league. They've practiced for like a few days before a game to team together and they're flying. So it's not so much. I just look at it as like, are there individual skills that can really pop? And there are. Like I know like Bronny James is like going to be the headline regardless, so we can start with him. I know there's a lot of talk about his offense and what it's not, his shot, X, Y, and Z. He had 3 points, 1 for 3 today, missed his lone 3. The defense is there. Like the defense, I know what he's played 2 games, so it's only been maybe like close to 60-ish minutes. But from what I've seen, like the defense is very much present. The point of attack defense, the ability to navigate around screens. There was a play, I don't know who was defending, can't remember his name, but he was fighting against, fighting down low against a big man and really was fronting and then really being physical. So that's, I mean, if we're going to I can go through individual players and kind of do it like that, but there's like that.
So Bronny, I'll stay with for a quick second because I think, and I'll tee you up for individual players. I think that's a good idea, but I think the Bronny piece of it, and I know exactly what you're talking about. He was kind of trying to almost front the big man, and the dude was big. I don't know who the guy was, but he was huge. Yeah, he was huge. And then Bronny, as he's trying to do that, ends up rolling off the player and actually knocks the ball away from a guard that was kind of trying to sneak baseline. So he covered some fantastic ground. I think there's a lot of people. I don't have, I want to say this because I've said it before. I don't have these crazy expectations for Bronny James. I'm still trying to figure out, hey, can this individual play in the league? Can he hang with some of these players? I think it's going to be common to see a lot of people say, hey, what'd Bronny do? Oh, he only had 3 points. What a bum. Yeah. I don't think that's his game. And I don't think that if Bronny James is going to be a player in the league and, in 4 or 5 years, we're talking about, wow, he's a nice role player on that team or whatever the case is. I don't think that's going to be because of what he does offensively. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, there does the offensive production. I mean, again, we're talking about years down the line, when he's 19, when he's in his early to mid 20s, approaching the prime of his career, the offensive production will need to pick up. Being able to get downhill a little bit more efficiently, being able to spray out, just make the more simple plays, just being more aggressive offensively. Because what can happen is he becomes a liability on that end of the floor, or just someone defensive don't respect. But for him, it's a cliche for 90% of role players, maybe, but it is defense first. It is going to start defensively, and then the shot, and then fill in the gaps from there. But again, summer league, he's playing against players in similar positions as him, or players also trying to get into the league. So this isn't high-level NBA caliber competition, but the defense to me is there, and that's an NBA that is an NBA skill. And I'm not just saying this because of summer league. I mean, just seeing him in college, even after what he went through with the cardiac arrest, the defense was still popping. But yeah, I mean,
is it surprise you to see him? Again, it's such a small sample size, and it is the summer league. But when you say the defense is there, are you surprised that you're saying that, or this was what it was expected?
I expected it. I mean, there is going to be once we get into the real games, whether it's G League or NBA games, the physicality is going to bump up. So I do wonder. I mean, he's 6'1.5" without shoes, or so 6'2" to 6'3". He's not the heaviest guy, so I do wonder just how does he deal with not guarding outside of ones and maybe smaller twos when he gets switched off, we saw it a little bit in that, but that was, I do have to respect the caliber competition. That's not, respectfully.
Sure.
So
sure.
That's not, speaking of, we were talking about the game earlier. That's not the game. That's not USA Canada. level of competition right there. It's so I'm not surprised. I expected the defense to be there, but it's just been good to see it be present, or as present as it has been in these couple of games he's been in.
I'm going to show you, and I think this is, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Okay,
Yeah.
if you look at, let me give some examples. Bronny tried so hard to score his usual 4 points, but he was a little short. How is it possible to score 3 points in 33 minutes? Amazing. Bronny, what was another one that I saw here? Lakers 4-on-5 when he's out there. There's a reason why I'm reading these comments. I'm reading these comments because is this how it's going to be for Bronny? Like, is this? Are we just at the beginning, and this is the first time we've ever seen him? And when the season actually starts, is there going to be? What do you expect the attention to be on Bronny? Because I think it's easy for right now, but it's not common, obviously, a number 55th pick in the second round. You're getting full reports from Dave McMenamin saying, hey, he's not playing on Sunday, right? You're getting, hey, here's his debut, which is, it's okay. There's interest, and there's a reason why people are writing these articles and talking about it. How much attention do you think stays with, how long do you think this lasts until, is it, hey, Lakers are 15 games into the season and no one's now talking about Bronny because they're just talking about how the Lakers are doing on the floor?
I do believe there will be a natural attention shift once we get deeper into the season, especially if he's not. I don't expect him to be in the rotation or play significant minutes. So if that's the case, then I think the attention will naturally shift away from Bronny to what are the Lakers doing? It's easy to focus on Bronny, just to your point, to the point you're making, just because I'm sure we'll get into this. They didn't acquire or add a new individual in free agency, a new player in free agency. The JJ Redick hires now 3-ish weeks ago, and he's not coaching. If he was coaching summer league, I think there'd be more attention on him, but he's not coaching summer league. So there's also there's no like JJ Redick analysis or evaluation or talk, just because now we're going to have to wait until whatever late September, early October to really get into the weeds of things. So I think the main focus is on Bronny in terms of what he's doing, what he's not doing down the line. So but I do think once we get into the season, especially if he's not playing consistently on the NBA team, then the attention will shift. Now, I do believe that if he does play with South Bay, there will be attention on that, but it won't be to this level just because it'll almost be its own separate, it'll be its own separate thing. It won't be related to, the NBA club Lakers. It'll be the South Bay Lakers. So once we get deeper to the season, it all depends on how the season goes, like how it starts. If the Lakers start, you said 15 games, so I'll go with that. If they start 11-4, then that's all really what it's going to be about. Like, all the Lakers is 80s that, LeBron's this, if they start 7-8,
sure,
trade this guy, trade that guy. This is depending on the roster, of course. So the attention will move away from Bronny. Is just he's the only, like, in terms of Lakers. I mean, obviously LeBron and AD are playing the Team USA, but that's also like its own. It's so separate too, and we haven't even gotten into the actual Olympics yet.
Hanging out here with Khobi Price of the OC Register. So Lakers and Heat, like I talked about. So Dalton Knecht, I want to spend a little time on Dalton and get your thoughts on what you thought so far in seeing in his play. He's played in all 3 games, really struggled from the field in the first 2 games. I thought, one of my takeaways as well, defensively, I thought there were some times where he was getting pushed around, specifically that game against the Warriors, giving up a couple offensive rebounds. Earlier today when they played, Knecht 7 of 18 from the field, 2 of 8 from the 3-point line. Really, really impressive first half, not as much in the second half, but ended up with 20 points and 9 rebounds. I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you've seen from him so far, and can this guy have a real role in the Lakers this upcoming year, or is that too much to ask for?
I don't think that's too much to ask for. I mean, when you have the first round, regardless of, well, I mean, I guess if you're drafting in the 20s or really the late 20s, you don't so much expect for a rookie to have that much of an impact. But I don't think that's unrealistic. I mean, depending on how the rest of the roster kind of shakes out, depending on if the Lakers wind up making trades and making additions later in the summer, I could see Dalton Knecht being in the rotation, in the back end of the rotation, mind you, but still in the rotation and getting 10, 12, 14 minutes a night. So with the shot, I mean, kind of the way that he's being used in the summer league games isn't what I would expect from him on the NBA level. I mean, it seems like a lot of their offense has been gone through Colin Castleton to an extent, in the elbows, dribble handoff actions. So at least when he's on the floor, and Dalton's been, whether it's running pick and roll or just coming off of those handoffs, that feels like, at least from what I've seen, that seems like that's been a good amount of the offense in a way that I would imagine, like once he's playing on the actual, for real Lakers, he will be used a lot more off ball. He won't be as on ball or have the ball in his hands as much as he's had in these summer league games. So that's like the one thing that I try to keep in mind when I'm watching is like, it's good for me to see you do that. I just don't know if that's what you're going to be doing a lot of when it comes time. And we saw that with Max Christie last year. Like we saw him, like he was flourishing, ball in his hands, creating, running pick and roll, all that. But then you get to the actual season, it was a little bit, but you're not doing all that when you have LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell. So it's hard, like as impressive as certain things are, how he's being used is not what I would expect come the fall.
It's a good point. I mean, I think Max Christie is a good example. I just, last year, and first off, Max Christie it felt like in his second year in the summer league, you're like, yeah, this dude doesn't even, should he be playing here? Like, there's no reason for him to be playing here. He's just way too good for it. But you're right. What he's able to do, it's like, go ahead and do your thing. That's how summer league was for him. That's not how that was going to translate come October and November and December. It was, hey, if you get opportunities, we're going to be very specific of what we need you to do. So whatever that looked like, obviously against in summer league wasn't going to look the other way. Yeah, it's interesting with Knecht because now a lot of the conversation goes from, hey, look, he was a steal at number 17. He can have an impact on the Lakers. He could do this. He could do that. He's got a long way to go, and I think that part's obviously it's summer league, and the man has never played in an NBA game, but he has such a specific strength that the Lakers need. So that's why I'm curious if you think, a player like that can have some impact specifically because the Lakers need shooters, and that's obviously in today's NBA, he's a sniper.
Yeah, and to come to the point, what's been helpful to see is even though the shot hasn't been there, one of the things that stuck out to me after they drafted him, like doing some research on him, but also watching these summer league games, is that he can provide more than just the shooting. So that's something that's been good to see. Like even if the shots are going down, just the ability to create the space for a decent shot. That's been good to see. And like in college, he was able to show that. That's the one thing that I keep in mind with Dalton is that shooting is his. I mentioned with Bronny, like defense is his NBA skill, at least specifically like point of attack defense. Dalton shooting is his NBA skill, or like quote unquote NBA ready skill theoretically. But I do believe he can bring a little bit more offensively. He can make the simple pass. He can come in. He can hit a pull up, come inside the 3-point line, hit a pull up. Like there's a little bit more wiggle. So he hasn't. The finishing at the rim hasn't been the best. He's really athletic. So that's like the one part is like maybe once he gets stronger, he figures out better finishes around the rim on the NBA level that you don't really have at the college level. But that's something I keep in mind. Like the shooting's there. That's the quote unquote NBA skill. But I can see, I don't know what you want to call it, like shades, the outlines of like other skills that can be useful at the next level.
Cole, I know we talked a little about it to start off with, and Summer League, you're heading out to Summer League. You're going to be there for some of the games, and I'll continue. We'll keep an eye out on how the youngsters are doing and how they're performing and everything else. When we started the show, it was the kind of lack of when it comes to free agency, right? Nothing crazy happened. We heard all the names. Hey, can Klay Thompson come to the Lakers? Or the Lakers going to make a big move? How many different times did you hear this player is rumored to potentially be interested in the Lakers? And when the dust settled, nothing. Do you expect anything at this point? I mean, there's still some things that can happen. They can still go out there and potentially make a trade, but how confident are you, or just your thoughts and feelings about what this Lakers roster is right now? Do you feel like there's a stronger chance that this is the roster, at least for the core of it, by the time next season starts, or do you still feel like there can be a move made?
I'm having a hard time seeing them making a significant shakeup to the roster in terms of the core guys. I mean, obviously, like the core starts with LeBron, AD, but then you get into Austin, D'Lo, Bando, Rui. Out of those, what I just list, 6 guys, 6 or 7.
Yep.
Gabe belongs in there as well. In theory, D'Lo is the most likely to not be on the team come the start of training camp or start of the season. But even like that's been a situation they've looked into before, and like they've looked into that before. So I would expect for them to continue to explore how they could add to this roster, how they could shake up this roster. They're also just dealing with very finite and limited resources in terms of just player like impactful players who trade for, and also ones that would make this team better too. Because to be more specific, like I think maybe we talked about this on your show back before the trade deadline, around the trade deadline. But if you're going to trade D'Angelo Russell, okay, who are you bringing in? Who are you sending them to, and who are you bringing in that's going to make the team better? Now, there also could be other, like they could try to trade some of the guys on the fringe of the roster just to open up the roster spots, but also enough space so they can access the taxpayer mid-level exception. And then that's how you can do like sign someone or do a sign and trade with maybe someone who's not currently on a roster or free agent not on the roster. So they have that option as well, but the more I think about it and the more I talk about it, I'm more convinced that the roster we see right now, at least
probably going to be the roster.
Yeah, probably going to be right. At least like the core of it, or like the rotation guys. Like maybe they can add one rotation piece if they, like I said, they traded a couple back end guys and signed someone with the mid level exception. But it's at this point, in terms of free agents. I mean, most of the top free agents are signed. I mean, I follow Keith Smith, and he tweets out every now and then like which top of free agents. Like I'm looking at, like there are a few who interest me for the Lakers, but it's obviously a dwindle now that it's July 10th instead of June 30th.
Yeah, even those names, it's and last show I did, we talked about it was Gary Trent Jr., it was Spencer Dinwiddie. There were some names that, okay, listen, if the Lakers had a Gary Trent Jr., I like it. Hey, bring him on. But like you said, is it going to be a big impact player? Is it going to be somebody in place of some of these other guys that's part of their core? Probably not. And I agree with you. And I think that, I think, yes, you can keep kicking the can down the road, and I understand if that's the case. But I don't think it's going to get any easier to go make trades as you get to the trade deadline. There's so many teams in the Western Conference that are also going to be competing for a playoff spot or a play-in spot. So I think if you're a buyer, it's probably going to continue to be very expensive. And if you're a seller, you're just kind of sitting back and you're like, I got 3-4 teams that might be interested in one of my guys. So that I don't think is going to go away. So I think whether that is this offseason or it's this upcoming trade deadline or at any point, I think that it's always going to be expensive. You mentioned the name right out the gate, and I had already created this banner.
Hey, look at this.
But here's the funny thing. It's not a shock or a surprise, right? D'Lo's name comes up all the time.
Yeah.
And the moment D'Angelo Russell signed and he opted into that final year of his contract, every report out there is like, okay, hey, now he can get traded. And it was okay, where is he going to go? And if what was the report that for Klay Thompson, Lakers were trying to shop D'Angelo Russell for a sign and trade. How do you think he feels about the team, his situation, the position? Basically, the fact that the entire time he's been with the Lakers, it's always been cool. You're here, but you're kind of just here to see if we can get something for you.
Yeah, he had 3.5 months of not being on at least from Lakers fan situation, not being on the trade block, and since then he's had 13 months of being on the trade block. It is kind of interesting how it happened. When he comes here, it's like, oh, we got a point guard. It's like, all right, yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean, that's just how it goes, right? I mean, for him, it's something just probably used to at this point. I mean, he probably feels a little differently now, I would imagine, than he did in February, or just like he's been like this has been like, to your point, this has been the situation for outside of 3-4 months in his return to the Lakers. You know, since being traded back to the Lakers and ahead of the 2023 deadline. So for him, it's probably just like business as usual. Probably doesn't feel the best like as soon as you return to a team. I know he said, I think he told David McMenamin that he looks forward to being having JJ as his coach, but probably doesn't feel the best to just always be on the trade block. But at the same time, he's a professional. And he's been he's not only been in these trade rumors for the past almost year now, but he's been traded. Multiple times now, 3 or 4 times. He was traded to the Warriors, traded to the Timberwolves, traded back to the Lakers. So, and his name's been brought up in trade talks for a while. So, nothing new for him. He's been there. He's done it. So, but it is like it is.
It's not going to stop.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not going to stop. Yeah. The only thing that would stop it, honestly, would be better playoff performance. Because even if he lights it up in the regular season, this season, if we get to February, like he could average like 22 or 23 points, 6 assists, shooting like 47% from the field, 40% on threes, and because of his again, it's also like the contract part of it. Like he's an expiring. Last year he was he could have been expiring, but didn't opt in or whatever. But it was a 1+1, and some teams are worried of that, but now he's expiring. Like I would imagine, regardless, like if D'Lo does what I said he would do, averaging those points on that efficiency, I'm still convinced a lot of Laker fans would want to trade him, just because of the fear of what he would do come playoff time.
It's funny. I think he went through a stage during the season. You're right, the regular season where things started to shift, and it was like, hey, you know what, D'Lo's doing his thing, the guy's delivering. But I could tell you this because I felt the same way. There was always something in the back of my head that's like, all right, cool. But what happens when it's game 3 or game 2 on the road? Lakers need you to deliver. And that Denver series, I mean, that's a perfect example. That the Nuggets series was a perfect example because he would have a performance where you're like, okay, hey, D'Lo's hitting tonight. He also had a game where he had 0 points. I mean, that's just like, it was such a wide swing where you didn't know, okay, hey, he's hitting some shots. But then he's also would have a game where it's like, you can't have him on the floor. I'm with you that Laker fans, and I think most of them feel this way, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but most of them would be okay if D'Angelo Russell got traded tomorrow. Partially because what you just said. Do they feel like in crunch time, playoff situation, is that a guy that you want to have on the floor in a critical game?
Yeah, high pressure moments, and it's not. I honestly, I remember the 0 for 7 night. Obviously, I was there, but I had to like go back to think like it felt like his playoff series, at least for him personally, felt very up and down. Like a subpar game
Big
1,
time.
really good game 2, really subpar game 3, big game 4, and then back to it was very much a roller coaster of performances. So I mean, and that's the concern. That is and it's not just the offensive production; it's also that defensively, he's not adding much to a team on that end. If anything, you could say he's taken away on that end, or is detrimental for a team on that end, especially in the playoffs. So, yeah, that's just the reality of the situation. That's why I say nothing probably will change Lakers fans' mind about D'Lo, rather other than a big time playoff performance or a big time playoff run. I mean, to me, that's the only thing, because there's until he has that, there's always going to be this is great, but in high it's always going to be but. So,
yeah, I think there's I could tell you, and I'm sure you run into, obviously a lot of Laker fans as well, and it feels like that's how it's going to be. Period. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Hanging out with Khobi Price, covers the Lakers for the OC Register. If you were watching USA versus Canada, I think they're at halftime now. USA with what are they up by? 8, 6, something like that?
I honestly just missed it. They were about 8, 41-33.
I know they were down big in the beginning, and then they've come back. Curious, I think everybody's got their own opinion. What's your thoughts on Rob Pelinka? Some of the things that we talk about D'Angelo Russell, and obviously he's on the roster, and sounds like obviously the front office has been trying to trade him. I think what's hindered the Lakers to some extent this offseason is the fact that they had these minimum contracts with a player option, and all of them took the player option. So you got, you're going to need some help if you're going to go, make a move or something along those lines. A lot of people feel a certain way. What's your thoughts? What's your takeaway from Rob Pelinka?
Just in terms of this offseason, or like bigger picture, his last, what's it been now, like 6 years as the lead executive?
I would say I'm more curious on the bigger picture of Rob, and what are some of the things that you like and some of the areas that you feel like he struggles in?
Oh man, honestly, I haven't. I've been so micro focused. I haven't given this much thought. So a lot of this I'm thinking off the top of my head. I mean, I guess I'll look at the micro and take the bigger picture. But I think there's been a struggle of figuring out the right formula, and this goes back to. I mean, this is a repetitive talking point, but after winning the championship, the change up the team, change it trading away Danny Green and getting Dennis Schroeder, which I still think that was the right move. I thought that was a good move. I think what people sometimes overlook is that team, that defending champion team, was a really great team until AD and LeBron got hurt. It wasn't the same after that. So I actually was fine with that. But to me, it was the season after, or the offseason after, trading for Russ and then kind of reinventing, changing the model or the foundation of what the team is. I think that, and then struggling, you had a model that worked, but then you went away from it for a season and a half. And then they coming into this year or last year, after the playoff run, after the Western Conference Finals run, they thought, all right, this is the new model. We found something better. But I thought one of the problems from last offseason, and this is all obviously hindsight, but really, I felt some of this in the moment, but especially now that you were moved, is that some of the negotiations or whatever it was, the contracts from last year, when you look back on it, it looks rough. I understand, it's weird for me to fault you changed too quickly away from the formula that was working, and then fault you for doing to stay the same. But look at the contracts that they paid some of these guys, paying Rui 3 for 51. Giving the player.
I think he's 17. Yeah, you're right about that. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was 3 for 53. 3 years, $51 million. Giving all your minimum guys player options for the following season. Because if not, that's not even a money thing. That's just also a roster flexibility part.
Yep.
So, and that's what's kind of hindering them. I mean, outside of not trading either of the draft picks you used on Bronny and Dalton, you basically had four, not counting LeBron because he opted out and resigned. You had 4 spots that were up in the air because of player options you dished out the previous offseason. So that's not the ideal place to be, especially when you want to have flexibility to get better. So it's like the past, at least since I've been on, it's been like weird. It's been interesting to evaluate because there's been like I guess a vision that I guess I can see, but it's also like the execution of it doesn't go the way that you would expect or the way that it's, I guess, presented to us. So that's like
a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and that's just like one of the bigger picture things that comes to mind. Like there's the individual micro things, but there seems to be a vision that always doesn't come to fruition, and then like the execution of it, like the very small details. Like, what if you gave 2 of your minimum assignment guys team options instead of player options, and then you gave 1 a player option? Or just, again, like this gets to like very the weeds of things, and you don't know, like maybe the player's like, no, I'm just gonna go to another team that I can be with. But I mean, some of it is like, to me, is just that the execution at times could be, at least for like help the team out, because in the execution from last year hurt the flexibility this year, and LeBron has to takes a pay cut because if he doesn't, now you're over the second apron. And you knew the second apron was coming. It's not like it's a big surprise. Yes, it came in a little under the original projection, but you were still over, I think, the original projection as well. So that's what I mean. Just you put yourself in that position in the first place.
Yeah, I think and I've tried kind of emphasizing this a couple times because I've heard it before, and I think it's a really good point. I think those minimum contracts, I think it was your way to lure these players in of like, listen, we're going to give you a platform, and if you perform, there's going to be contracts for you out there for you somewhere else. Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood. The worst case scenario is, what if all 3 of those guys didn't perform to where the NBA was saying, wait, I could pay how much for that guy? No, I'd love to have that guy on my team for X amount of dollars. So the players weren't impactful while you had them, and now you have to have them for another year because nobody else, there really isn't a market for those players. So I think he kind of shot himself in the foot. But I also understand Pelinka's coming from at that time saying, if I could just get Christian Wood to commit here, if I could just get Jackson Hayes to commit, I think there's value in Cam Reddish. It just don't work out. So now it's going to be up to, obviously JJ Redick to kind of find some ways. And they can still make moves. It's just going to cost them now because you need another team to help you in a sense to open up some roster spots. I mentioned to you – go ahead, Khobi. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say real quick, the one thing as we were speaking about, like bigger picture, I felt like there were – true and understandably stuff like it's like a hindsight thing to say now that we're 12 months removed. I think there was too much optimism. They move with too much optimism based off of the Western Conference Finals run, because everything that they did was basically, if everything works ideally, we're in a great spot. Well, if it doesn't, like the Jackson, and I know we want to move on. Like the Jackson thing, to me, I thought he actually outplayed his contract. But he winds up opting in because, I guess he didn't have a better situation to go to. But even when the guy outplays his contract, it's still, that's also what I mean too. It's just finding there was so much optimism. Like all the moves were, this is the best case scenario, and it's all going to work out. Well, if it doesn't, oh crap! Now we have 13 guys going into the draft, basically.
Well, and there's a little bit of, I don't know how you want to kind of describe this, but I'm not saying the Lakers got trapped by getting to the Western Conference Finals, but you can also think, no, we're good. We don't need to do anything. Look, we just got to the Western Conference Finals. I think, if you look a little bit deeper into it, you would say, okay, well, how did they get there? Where were they when the season ended, where was their placement? How did they end up in that seed? Who did they have to face to get to the Western Conference Finals? Did you have some advantages? Were there some players injured? All that stuff, right? And I think this past year, it was almost whatever luck that you had go your way in the past, it was gone. And that usually happens with luck, right? It's going to balance itself out. And they didn't have as much that went their way. Okay, so I mentioned to you Yahoo Sports, and I'm curious to just get your thoughts on this. They had a piece. They're doing the power rankings in the NBA. Okay.
Yeah.
And this was a couple days ago that they did it. And where do you think in the entire NBA, where do you think they had the Lakers? And then I'll tell you also where they had them in the Western Conference. Where do you think they had them?
I mean, I see you had them. I'm cheating because you have.
Oh yeah, that's right. How about in the entire league? In the entire league.
Well, if they're 10 in the West, I'm going to guess 16. No, wait. 10 in the West. Yeah, 16 in the conference.
Okay.
In the NBA. 16 or 17.
Okay.
Back between the two.
It's a good guess. And I'll tell you. So they had them at 18. And here are the teams they had in front of them. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
They had Miami in front of them. And I'm only going to go through like a few of them, but they had Miami in front of them.
Okay.
They had Sacramento in front of them with, obviously now DeMar DeRozan. And listen, Sacramento was balling against the Lakers every time they played anyways. And, obviously if Malik Monk doesn't get hurt, they're probably in the playoffs. But they had Sacramento in front of them.
Yeah.
Had Golden State in front of them, which I thought was a little interesting. But, I think they're just banking on a couple of the small moves that they've made since they lost Klay Thompson. They think Memphis is going to be a lot better. Obviously, a healthy Ja Morant, Marcus Smart, Jaren Jackson Jr., go down the list. That's what they figure. And then Cleveland, Phoenix, and New Orleans were all in front of them as well. I think I wrote in the notes there that they got the Lakers 10th in the West.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? What do you think of where they have the Lakers, specifically in the Western Conference? What do you think?
I mean, that feels low when you say it, but that feels low, but it would honestly be more surprising if they had them hot. Like, there are 15 teams in each conference. If they had them at 5, I would be more surprised to have them in at 10. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. I feel like the 7 to 10 range is more appropriate than that's the playing range than like the 4 to 6 range. So it's not surprising. I mean, they finished last year as a number 7 seed, but they were number 8 in the standings.
Sure.
Right? So
and everyone was so close together. And
it came down to the final game, came down to the final day of the season, basically. So I'm not. That's why. What did I guess? Oh, you had me guess.
In the West. Or in the entire NBA, 16 or 17.
So that's not surprising. I'm surprised by the Heat specifically. But every other team, I mean, the Kings were right below the Lakers in the standings last year.
Sure. And you can make a case. They went 4-0 against the Lakers.
Yeah, so you can make a case. I mean, like I said, they finished 8th in the standings. Memphis should be much better. So if we just reimagine, like, there's a world in which the Lakers finish 9th or 10th in the standings. Were the Clippers above the Lakers, Benjamin?
So that's what I was going to say. The teams behind the Lakers, Clippers were behind them.
Okay.
Rockets were behind them. San Antonio was behind them, which is all good, but those are also going to be really competitive. I think even the Clippers losing Paul George, I still think they're going to be competitive every night. Like they'll just be a tough out every single night. I don't think they shouldn't have a better record than the Lakers. Houston looks like they're on the up and up. San Antonio is clearly on the up and up as well, but the Clippers were behind them.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it goes without saying, like, the Kawhi factor with the Clippers speaks for. I mean, as we see with Team USA.
Oh, sure, 100%.
So that's why I was. But yeah, I mean, the Lakers being 10. I mean, I do feel. I mean, all offseason, everybody talks about, like, the top 4 in the West being whatever, like Minnesota, Dallas, OKC, and Denver. I would be surprised if like we say this every offseason, like we think we can project the standings, and it like turns out the way. There's usually a team that disappoints in the top 4 or 5. So I'm curious to see of those 4, which one will be the disappointing team if it does happen. But all of those teams I've expected to finish higher than the Lakers. So now you're kind of, to me, you're starting at 5. So 5 and 10. I mean, is there a world in which the Lakers are 5? Sure. But I do feel like if you ask me, are they going to finish the season 5th?
More likely.
Yeah, I would say they're more likely to finish 10th than finish 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said that's why I guess they're going to be like 7 or 8.
Well, by the way, that's kind of no different than they've been the last couple of years.
Yeah, last 2 seasons.
And last 2 seasons, and this is kind of where they've hovered around and where they've hung out at, and that wouldn't be a shock at all. I think the bigger surprise would be is if they were a 5, right? So I don't think that's crazy to think that. Final one I got for you, and I appreciate you hanging out on this Wednesday night here. Kind of look at the entire NBA for a quick second as the dust has begun to settle a little bit here. Who were you most impressed with in the offseason?
Sixers all season obviously goes without saying. Being able to get Paul George, being able to add Caleb Martin on that contract.
That was a quiet deal too. I agree.
Eric Gordon, I'm pretty sure he's there now too.
Yep, he is.
That's a nice move. I remember I had this conversation last offseason. People asked or wonder like, why hasn't Tyrese Maxey signed his extension yet? And then it was like obvious, and then people were like, "Oh, they're doing that so they can keep as much cap space available for the following offseason." And then it's one of those like, but he's going to sign his new deal anyway. But whenever that happens, you're always like, all right, well, how's that going to go? Like, are you actually going to get the guy, or get not Maxey, but like get a guy to fit alongside Embiid and Maxey? And they did it. That was an intentional thing in terms of Maxey will get your contract. Next offseason, we just got to take advantage of this opportunity to sign a big player. So that was one. I'm trying to think of other teams like OKC. My bad. I was Caruso and Arjen Hartenstein. That's that.
No, I'm with you. I was ready. If you weren't going to say it, I was going to remind you because I think what a phenomenal offseason for a team that was already in a great position.
And didn't have to give anything of significance to make those improvements. I mean, I remember reading like Sam Presti's like, we're going to use the playoffs to see what we need to improve at, or evaluate as an evaluation period, which they should. And they both improve. Like with Hartenstein, they like strengthen a weakness, but they also double down on their identity, being defense and versatility. So, especially with Caruso, I mean, he can guard 3-4 positions, all defense level guy. Now you have, Caruso and Jalen Williams and Dort. I mean, just Chet Holmgren. I didn't even mention Shea. Like this, the skill and defensive level on that team is going to be insane. But yeah, I don't know. Like they should have been. After Philly, that's like. Or right up there with Philly in terms of the best off seasons, to me. And we'll also still have the flexibility going forward.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because the names probably, obviously it's not the name of Paul George, but what they got at the price they got it at and the specific needs that they need. Listen, whether they go out and make another move or they don't, that is a phenomenal team that already had the best record in the Western Conference. Now a little bit more experience. Now adding a couple players that, one that's been an NBA champion, and the other one just went through a solid playoff run with the New York Knicks. That team's going to be a problem. No question about it. So I agree with you on that.
Shouts. I was about to say a couple more. Shouts to the Knicks. I'm thinking about the teams because the weird part.
What'd you think? What do you think? Losing Hartenstein, but the Mikal Bridges of the whole mix.
Yeah, I thought that was. Losing Hartenstein's rough. Like they're gonna miss him, but I mean, that's to me, that's like another one of those like doubling down situations. Wings of that caliber are in high demand for a reason. So to have a wing rotation of Anunoby, Bridges, Hart, even Shinzo, that's not even to mention Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, Miles Robinson. Like that's a real like. All right, we can. Like, you can win play. Like they want to playoff round this, but you can make a significant run. I don't know about the finals, but in the playoffs, or to the finals rather, but in the playoffs behind that kind of wing play. So they'll miss Hartenstein on the interior, and if his micro skills, but the talent upgrade, and especially in the skills that the modern NBA prioritizes, that was big. That was a big sign.
Yeah, I think obviously it just kind of shows that look, the league, no matter how you look at it, there's so many good teams, and I think if the idea and the concept what Adam Silver was hoping for was they want competition, they want a number of teams to have a chance. That's obviously that plan is working right there. Khobi, I appreciate it, brother. I appreciate you hanging out. My timing was awful because it was right at USA versus Canada, so my apologies on that. But
we still it's 56-49 with 5 minutes left in the third, so there's still plenty of game left. Don't you worry.
We got time. All right, we got time. Well, I appreciate you hanging out. I know you're going to take off to summer league, so go enjoy that. And I know you and I are going to connect again. For everybody hanging out, whether live or watching it after we already recorded this, thank you for doing so. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll get back with you guys soon. Thank you for hanging out.
No, appreciate having me. Have a good one.
All right, Cole. Thank you, brother.
Peace.